It is time to get out of pocket. We have a big show in store for you today, live out of pocket boom broadcasting. I'm your host, Michael Davis. We're going to talk about the Cincinnati Bengals getting paid. We're talking about Paul George sitting out, but it is March Madness time. You saw the debut of Hoops and Helmets yesterday with a college football and college basketball show that is going to be airing Mondays and Thursdays at 5:30. And don't worry, Out Pocket will still be bringing you content Tuesdays and Fridays at that 5:30 time slot, just like we are today. And Aaron and Carson, great job on your debut. It was awesome to get to watch that. I can't wait to see what you cook up for Thursday's show. But I am still so upset that the UNC Tarheels snuck in to the NCAA tournament, and they shouldn't have been. The UNC Tarheels, you've heard all the things. They were so bad in quad one. And if you look at the teams that UNC actually beat, which isn't a lot, by the way, you will look at the rest of the field in this March Madness bracket tournament, and you start to realize, actually, of all the teams that made it this year, they beat two of them. And one of them is American, and they're a 16 seed. So you mean to tell me that the UNC Tar Heels deserve to be in this tournament? If you look at the bracket in of itself as a whole, you can only come to one conclusion: that the North Carolina Tar Heels got in on their name brand alone. That's the only explanation you can come up with when it comes to the UNC Tar Heels. Why didn't we put West Virginia in? Riddle me this. The same team that had quality wins over number 3 Gonzaga, number 24 Arizona, number 7 Kansas. They did lose to Houston, but they beat Iowa State. You look at all of these teams that West Virginia played, and it baffles me that we didn't give them an opportunity to be in this tournament. But you know who we are going to let in? We're going to let in just the grossest North Carolina Tar Heels. Why? Because they're the UNC Tar Heels? When they played Duke, who was missing Cooper Flagg, okay. They were okay. By the way, sweat by Duke. And just so you know, I am not wearing a Duke sweatshirt because I did want to come through this with a realistic perspective. And no UNC fan can look at me and tell me they earned it, because they didn't. This team was pretty bad throughout the entire season. And if you're going to tell me that the UNC Tar Heels earned a spot, you're looking at it with blinders. You're looking at this game with blinders. And that's a shame, because there were other deserving teams like West Virginia. I would have put in West Virginia. And not only that, but I don't love how March Madness, with their first 4 teams in, all have they all have the 16 seeds. If you're the last team in, you shouldn't be the ability to be an 11 seed. Alabama State and St. Francis, Pennsylvania. Okay? You know what they are? They are fighting for a 16 seed. They are fighting to be a 16 seed. That's what they're trying to be right now. You look at what the other teams are. American versus Mount St. Mary's. You know what they're competing for? They're competing to be a 16 seed. One team's going to play 1 seed Duke. The other's going to play 1 seed Auburn. Why do we have Texas and Xavier competing to be an 11 seed? Why do we have San Diego State and North Carolina competing to be an 11 seed when they are literally the last 4 into the tournament? And this isn't just UNC. This has been a problem I've had with this bracket for quite some time. But what I do have a problem with is UNC getting in based on the brand. That's what happened. That is what happened. And it's sick. It's appalling. And let's be honest. If it wasn't UNC, they wouldn't be in. Now, we have been, honestly, we've been digging in on the selection committee for putting UNC in. But if you've watched Out Pocket the last couple of weeks, we've also been digging into the Cincinnati Bengals. Because the Cincinnati Bengals weren't signing T. Higgins. They kept franchise tagging him. You see all these other teams make moves, make big dollar moves. And then the Cincinnati Bengals decide, hey, let's get it all done now. Let's get it all done. Let's simultaneously sign T. Higgins, 4 years, $115 million. They's fully guaranteed for the first 2 years. And Jamar Chase, 4-year, $161 million. That is 112 of that guaranteed. And now Jamar Chase is the highest annual salary for a non-quarterback. So that blew Myles Garrett's stat that he had for 2 weeks, maybe a week. That's all Myles Garrett had, and now it's Jamar Chase resetting the market. Now, this again impacts the rest of the NFL because there's a lot of players on the defensive side of the ball, on the offensive side of the ball, who will want to get paid. Micah Parsons being one of them. He's saying he'll give the Cowboys a little bit of a discount. Who knows if that will actually happen or not. You just keep Micah Parsons on the team. Trey Hendrickson, also of the Cincinnati Bengals. Where's his money? Where's his deal? Because I really, really see 2 things about this Cincinnati Bengals moves. One is the offensive side of the ball. This is 2 sides of the coin. And heads, you got offense. Tails, you got defense. Offensively, you just gave your franchise quarterback his 2 favorite weapons. T. Higgins is now happy because he's actually being paid, and he's actually received a commitment long-term from the Cincinnati Bengals organization. That's all T. Higgins wanted. I mean, people are like, oh, no, T wants to go do his own thing. He wants to be his own man. Well, 4 out of his 5 years, he had over 900 yards. 2 of those, he had 1,000 yards. This past year, a career high with 10 touchdowns. When you have such great chemistry with your quarterback, you don't want to leave. You don't want to leave. Especially if you're the Cincinnati Bengals and you're T. Higgins and you're looking at, wow, Jamar Chase is going to get the double teams. I'm never going to be double teamed. If T. Higgins went to New England, you know what would happen? His numbers would drop. Imagine not having 900 yards a year. Imagine having 600 because you're double teaming them. And it's Drake May throwing you the ball, not Joe Burrow. And so for T. Higgins, I don't think he ever wanted to leave Cincinnati. I think he just had his feelings hurt and he wanted to get paid. And I can't blame T. Higgins for wanting to get paid. Now you get Jamar Chase, who gets his bag. Jamar Chase blows CeeDee Lamb's out of the water. CeeDee Lamb getting signed right in the summertime, right before the season, $34 million a year. And it just keeps going up. Nick Bosa at 34.2, Justin Jefferson at 35. You have Max Crosby, and then I mentioned Myles Garrett making $40 million a year. Jamar Chase averaging just a little over that, $40.3 million a year. Jamar Chase is getting paid $5 million more than any other receiver in the NFL right now. And Jamar Chase is arguably the best receiver in the NFL. Jamar Chase, Justin Jefferson, CeeDee Lamb, those are your top three. However you want to slice or dice it, those are your top three receivers, and Jamar Chase is getting paid like he's number one. And I will let you know he has a claim for that spot. In some years, it's been Justin Jefferson. In some years, it's been CeeDee Lamb. I think CeeDee had one of the better years this year, but you can't argue with Jamar Chase having 1,700 yards and having 17 touchdowns, leading the NFL in both categories, having 75 first downs, again, most in the NFL, and having 787 yards after the catch, again, most in the NFL. Targets, most in the NFL, 175. Catches, most in the NFL at 127. He was Cincinnati's offense. In a year that Cincinnati just moved on from Joe Mixon, Mixon goes to Houston, and he just builds a new career there. But the Cincinnati Bengals function through Jamar Chase, with T. Higgins there, and with Joe Burrow throwing Jamar Chase the ball, they're the most dangerous. But defensively, this is where we're a little critical of the Cincinnati Bengals, because Trey Hendrickson's still looking for a new team. He's looking for a trade partner that the Bengals can, use to get him out of town, because they're not going to want to pay him. Even though Trey Hendrickson, back-to-back years, led the NFL in sacks, and you can say what you want, but there is nobody on the other side of Trey Hendrickson. There is nobody on the other side of Trey Hendrickson. And to lead the league in sacks both years, what a dude. And you cannot tell me you're willing to let this man walk out of your facility. You're telling me you're okay if he leaves. You're telling me it's okay. I mean, the Cincinnati Bengals, they're sometimes a poorly run organization. Trey Hendrickson wants to leave. T. Higgins almost left. But you look at the talent, and you have Joe and Jamar and T, and you have Trey. You won 5 of your last games of the season, and you almost made it in if you didn't start so horribly. This team started 0-3, started 1-4, but some of these losses were to the Commanders, who made the playoffs, the Ravens, who made the playoffs, the Chiefs, who made the Super Bowl, and were back-to-back defending champions. You go later on in the year and you lose to the Eagles, the eventual Super Bowl champions. Again, the Ravens were your division rival. The Chargers, mid, but really great defense. And the Pittsburgh Steelers. You had every opportunity to build a roster, and you are relying on 3 to 4 stars to help you be relevant, to where you could finish the season as a winner, where you could finish the season on a 5-game win streak and be 9-8. But as you can tell, even though this isn't the case in the Dallas Mavericks situation, Nico thinks defense wins championships in the NBA. Defense does seem to win championships in the NFL. Philadelphia's defense was one of the better defenses in the NFL, with rookie corners, defensive pressure, running the ball. And what the Cincinnati Bengals have done is they've lost their run game. Chase Brown is not Joe Mixon. They need a dude at running back. They have a high-powered offense with Jamar Chase and T. Higgins being thrown the ball by Joe Burrow, who could easily pass 5,000 yards any year. And on defense, you have Trey Hendrickson. You let linebacker, veteran, former Mountaineer, Akeem Davis Gaither walk. But the only thing on defense that really excites me is Trey Hendrickson. And you're like, yeah, go find a trade partner. We don't need you. And to me, that baffles me, but almost baffles me as much as this guy, because Philadelphia is no longer PG-13. The 76ers went all out and tried inquiring Paul George, and I'm just appalled at how much the Philadelphia 76ers gave up to get Paul George. 4 years, $212 million. Okay? The Clippers, they traded a potential future MVP, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, to the Oklahoma City Thunder in exchange for Paul George. And this was after Paul George had his little stint. He had a very short stint in Oklahoma City. And people were like, okay, this is Paul George. He's going to go from Indiana, and he looked to be the guy. He was a top 10 pick, and he took over for Danny Granger in that era, and he's going to make the same in OKC. Well, he doesn't. And then he goes to the Clippers, and you bring in Kawhi Leonard, who had just brought a ring to the Toronto Raptors, and then that's not the same story. And then you bring him to Philadelphia, and look, dude, Philadelphia. I mean, look at this team. You have Joel Embiid, who kind of won MVP. You have Tyrese Maxey, and you're just looking, and you're like checking off all the boxes on this roster. They go out and get Jared McCain, the rookie from Duke, who looks very promising. They go out. Heck, they even went out and got Quentin Grimes from the Dallas Mavericks, who is balling right now. Yet the Philadelphia 76ers are hot garbage. The 76ers, with that roster, and I told my friends this. I'm friends with a few Philadelphia fans, and I told them, I looked at that roster, and I'm like, Paul George may not move the needle, but you have Joel Embiid, you have Tyrese Maxey. That's all you need, by the way. They had Caleb Martin at one point, who was a really great role player in the final trip Miami made a couple years ago to play the Denver Nuggets. Obviously, they lost to Joker and the Nuggets in the finals, but Caleb Martin, a very vital piece. So you're telling me you have Jared McCain, Kyle Lowry as a veteran, you have Tyrese Maxey, you have Joel Embiid, and you're adding Paul George not as a number one option, not as a number two option, but a very solid number three option. And it's just falling apart. It's fallen apart in just the worst way. Jared McCain out for the year. Joel Embiid couldn't stay healthy at all. Played 19 games. I mean, let me show you how many games people played for this team. Joel Embiid played 19 games this year. Jared McCain played 23. Caleb Martin, before he gets traded, plays 31. Kyle Lowry plays 33. Paul George plays 41. Tyrese Maxey, give him credit. He played 52. But guess what? We have played 68 games for the 76ers, and none of their stars are going to get anywhere close to playing 76 games for the 76ers this year. And What I see is you have Joel Embiid, who has had injuries his entire playing career, even dating back to college. Foot or lower body injuries on big men never work out. But you have Joel Embiid, who's obviously declined in his health. He's not Joel Embiid who's going to dominate and lead a team anymore. You have Paul George, who is super old, who is 34, going on 35 this year. He's out for the season because he's received injections in his left adductor muscle and left knee, and he's been ruled out for the season. Ironically enough, 24 hours before they play the OKC Thunder, who Paul George got traded to LA for SGA. And SGA has turned out to be the dude. So when we start looking at Philadelphia and what they are, they obviously need to blow it up. You need to stop trusting the process. Jason, from 3 from deep, 3 times a week, Monday, Wednesday, Saturday at noon, when he mentioned that you should just blow up the process and start over, I 100% agree. I 100% agree. There is no reason, if you looked at this roster on opening night, that they would be anywhere close to a lottery pick. You're meaning to tell me, looking at the rosters before, that I'm not even afraid to throw shade. Cleveland is just blowing Philadelphia out of the water. Cleveland replaced their head coach last year. Boston, we expected. New York, we expected. Milwaukee, we expected. But there's no other team in the East that should be doing better than Philadelphia. Brooklyn, Toronto, Miami, Chicago, Orlando, Atlanta, Detroit. Really? And let's just throw in Paul George's former Indiana Pacers team for fun. Philadelphia had enough talent on this team to make a run, to make a real run, and Joel Embiid's never sniffed the conference finals. So when you look at the process, if it worked or didn't work, it's over now. You need to go ahead and stop. You need to stop. You need to blow this team up, and you're going to regret giving Paul George all that money. You're going to regret giving Joel Embiid all that money, and you need to build around Tyrese Maxey while you still have the kid in his prime, and just move on. Just move on. Because there's going to be 2 things that haunt you. The Denver Nuggets, who have Nikola Jokic, who is a better center than Joel Embiid and should very well be the MVP. Top 3 in points per game, top 3 in rebounds per game, top 3 in assists per game this year. Wilt never did that. Jordan, Kobe, LeBron never did that. He's the real dude. And the OKC Thunder. Paul George being traded from OKC to the LA Clippers because OKC realized what the Clippers took so long to realize and what Philadelphia has not realized yet. Going after these veterans who were past their prime, injury prone, want to sit out and rest for the playoffs, are putting their teams in position to where they aren't even making the playoffs. They're not making the playoffs. The Philadelphia 76ers are missing the playoffs this year because they invested in Paul George rather than, hey, let's actually go after a younger guy who might not be 30 yet and is still playing at an elite level rather than going off the name value of Paul George. So I'm sorry, Philadelphia. It's no longer PG-13 here. But this was for mature audiences only. And if you're mature enough, you would know you have to get rid of Paul George. Ladies and gentlemen, that's it for Out of Pocket today. As you can see from the schedule changes, Out of Pocket is now twice a week, Tuesdays and Fridays at 5:30. Hoops and Helmets, a show dedicated to college basketball and college football, is now on Mondays and Thursdays at that 5:30 slot. We hope you've enjoyed this episode. Let us know who you have win the tournament, and I know you guys don't have UNC. But for Michael Davis, this has been Out of Pocket on Boom Broadcasting. Out of Pocket will be back Friday at 5:30. Can't wait to see you here.
Well, that's it. I really hope you enjoyed it. You had a ball making it. Thank you very much.